Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay. A very good evening to all our attendees, and viewers who are watching us live on FB and YouTube today. A very warm welcome to our The Saga series. Am I audible? Okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry for that. And once again, a very good evening to all our attendees and viewers who are watching us live on FB and YouTube. A very warm welcome to our Author Saga series. A quick recap about Pick a Book for those of you who are new to Pick a Book. Pick a Book is all about reading and more reading and inculcating the habit of reading, research, and presenting the summary of it in our regular meeting sessions. Creating a better world by changing the sense of self through the habit of reading is the vision of Pick a Book. Currently, Pick a Book marks its presence, inspiring presence in four countries: Sri Lanka, India, Singapore, and UK, with over 700 plus readers, 18 regions, and 40,000 people inspired through our sessions in span of 1 year. Pick a Book continues to spread its wings across the globe. And we have come up with a new initiative, a brand of its own called Other Saga Series, wherein the authors can reach their readers and individuals with like-minded interests. Authors can also discuss the key insights of their books, and readers can have the opportunity to know more about the book from the author himself or herself. And today, the author who is with us tonight is Dr. Lorea Martinez. She is award-winning founder of Heart and Mind Consulting, a company dedicated to helping schools and organizations to integrate social emotional learning in their practices, products, and learning communities. Dr. Martinez is she is also an educator who has worked with children and adults internationally. Dr. Lorea is currently a faculty member at Columbia University Teachers College, educating aspiring principals in emotional intelligence. Previously, she was a special education teacher and an administrator. Learn more about Lorea, you can visit her website, which is loreamartinez.com. So, a very warm welcome, Lorea. It's a pleasure having you with us tonight.
Hi, Swarma. Thank you so much for having me today. Excited to be here.
Thank you. We are equally excited as well. Okay, first of all, let me congratulate you on this wonderful book, and we wish you from Pick a Book. We wish for very long way in writing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are you an avid reader, Lorea? And do you think reading books played an important role in making you what you are today?
Oh, absolutely. I was an avid reader since I was a little girl. And I remember, like, I couldn't have enough books. My favorite place growing up was going to the library. And the librarian knew me very well. And when she saw me come in, she knew that I was going to go straight and ask her, oh, I need recommendations because I'm done with my books. And especially as a teenager, when I was, between 14 to, I would say, 17, 18, those years are really hard growing up because your brain is developing, your body is developing. And I found being around books, that was my favorite place. So definitely, books have played a very important role in my life, and I continue to read as much as I can. I have two young children, so sometimes I'm not able to read as much as I would like, but definitely books have been an important part of my life. Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you. That's great to know that you are an avid reader. Thank you for that. Okay, and we want to know how did your journey as a writer start in the first place? So when did you identify your writer in you?
Writing. So I think that I've written for a long time, and as when I was a young adult, I used to write short stories, so fiction, non stories. and I kept a journal always growing up. So writing has been part of my life as well. But with this uh, latest book, I felt that I had a message that I wanted to share with the world. And I had a particular perspective on social emotional learning that I felt it wasn't coming across in some of the other literature that I was reading and seeing in the field. And I really, they say that you have a book in your heart, and I believe that's true, and that was true for me, and that's why I wrote the book, to share my message with the world and be able to give the gift of social emotional learning to many educators and parents, so they could benefit from everything that comes with teaching children and adults about emotions, and how to live a, a satisfying life.
Um, yes, Loria, one more question for you. What made you start writing this book? Why is it named Hard?
Yes, so HARD is an acronym for 5 essential social emotional skills. And Heart in Mind emphasizes the fact that when we work with children, of course, we are teaching them academics, we're teaching them how to do math, and we are teaching them to read and write, we're teaching them sciences and history. But there is an important component in teaching, which is really connecting with students at that emotional level. So Heart in Mind is kind of like a reminder for educators to connect with their hearts as they are teaching, to keep that heart in mind as they are preparing their lessons and being in front of their students. No, like I can't hear you.
Is it okay now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the interesting conversation with Dr. Loria. So let's now move forward about what is the book and what's the message Dr. Loria wants to convey to the audience. Okay. So the first question here comes, Loria. What is a social emotional learning, which you said it as SEL, and why do you think it is important in our schools?
Yes, that's a great question. So social emotional learning is a process for adults and children to develop essential social emotional skills. So social emotional skills are, for example, being able to connect with your feelings, know what's happening for you inside. So emotions are information, they are data, and when we pay attention to our emotions, we are using all the tools we have, we are using that information in order to make better decisions. So when we teach social emotional learning, we are teaching students how to connect with those emotions. We are teaching them how they navigate, we call them big feelings, when you are very angry, or maybe you are frustrated or sad because something happened. Um, Teaching all those tools in order to be able to navigate those feelings, so they can focus and they can be present in the classroom, and also they can make good decisions outside. SEL also has to do with how you establish positive relationships with others, how you show empathy for your friends, for other people that are in your life, being able to have that other perspective. And it's also about finding purpose in your life. And for children, this might be a new concept, but thinking about how they can be change makers in their communities, when they see and they identify something they are passionate about, that they can contribute to their communities. All of those things are social emotional learning. And it's important because we need, these are life skills. If we cannot navigate our feelings, it's very hard that we pay attention in class, or that we may provide or have a harsh comment for someone if we are upset. So really these skills help us to be, in a way, better human beings.
Yep, exactly. Can't agree more on this. So ladies and gentlemen, as Loria shared, this is very, very important for our children, to learn, to go through this process of learning, which is called social emotional learning. Like how she shared, empathy is also a very important part of it. And from the very young age, it's very, very important to know what is the purpose of life. That's what mostly neglected. In fact, when it comes to sharing with children, we generally don't speak in that language. So it is a very, very important point. Thank you, Laurie, for sharing. And and you also said, why is a relationship important in teaching and learning?
Yeah, so relationships are a very important component in how educators establish a connection with children. And for for a long time in schools of education, when teachers are getting ready to become teachers, sometimes it is taught that when you come into the classroom as a teacher, you have to leave your emotions outside the door. You become this very, strict, serious person. But what happens is when our brains are afraid, for example, or we are stressed because this person is very serious in front of us, our brains are not ready for learning. They actually shut down because we perceive that there's a threat. But if you have an educator who's warm, who's asking, as a student, asking you, how are you doing, how's your family, were you able to get your work done, do you have any challenges, that relationship really opens the brain for learning. So when educators are warm and they pay attention to their students as people, they can really establish that connection. And what research has found is, especially for students who come into the classroom with having experienced adversity like poverty or maybe difficult situations at home, that relationship with the adult can actually change their genetic makeup. So it can be a protective factor for children who have experienced trauma growing up. So the role of the educator is crucial in developing that positive relationship to support the child to grow and be a healthy and working adult that can be successful in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Loria. That's a very rightly said and shared point. Because, see, most of the places, like, generally teachers and teachers come with a preset mind. Like, teacher has to be strict, in home, should be strict at, behaving with children. But that is not the right way, as you said. So,
Right. And that doesn't mean that the teacher is not going to have boundaries, right? So sometimes educators, when they hear, oh, I have to focus on relationships, they worry that then the kids are going to misbehave because they are not as serious. But what happens is when children really see that the adult that they have in front of them really cares about them, they will do things for you, right? It is a combination of accountability and boundaries, limits, but also with that warm, sometimes we call it warm demander, where you are asking children to do things and at the same time you are providing the supports so they can do their best learning.
exactly, exactly. Very truly said. Yes, it's very helpful for children also, because they can come out and speak to them what the problem is. Because after the parents, that is the time where they spend the time with the teacher or the educator. So that's very, very important from teacher's point of view to maintain that warm relationship with them. So now I understand why relationship is important and why you focused on that point in your book. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to my next question. In your book, The Heart and Mind, you talk about heart and mind model. So what is it? How can teachers and parents use this tool?
Yes. So, as I was mentioning earlier, HEART is an acronym for five essential social emotional skills. So, H stands for honor your emotions. And that means seeing emotions are allies and not enemies that you have to fight. So when we honor our emotions, we are just accepting what are the feelings that are happening. Again, emotions are data. So by honoring our emotions, we are just using this information in order to make better decisions. The E stands for elect your responses, and that has to do with self management skills, taking a breath, taking a pause before we respond to something that has angered us, being able to journal or write down our thoughts, just taking all those little steps to be able to navigate those emotions. That's like your responses. The A stands for apply empathy. And empathy is being able to see a situation from the other person's point of view. Doesn't mean that we agree with their feelings, but that we are able to connect with them. The R stands for reignite your relationships. And as we were discussing, relationships is such an important part of not only the relationship between the educator and the child, but also many when we are adults in our workplaces, relationships is such an important component on being able to be successful in the workplace. So being able to plant those seeds for those relationships, and what are some of the things that we do in order to do that, from communication to how to create trust, all of that is part of reignite your relationships. And then the last one, the T stands for transform with purpose. And that's the aspect that we were discussing earlier around teaching students how they can be change makers in their community, connecting their passions and their interests with how they want to improve the communities where they work, and being able to realize that they have a voice that is important, that matters, in improving their surroundings. So with this model, what I hope is that educators and parents teach these competencies to their children, and also that they practice themselves. So an important part of this process is not only for children to develop these skills, but also for us as adults to pay attention to how we are practicing these skills on a regular basis. Because unless we adults are the models for the children, it's real hard that we can teach these skills effectively to them. It would be almost a contradiction if we are asking children to not yell and to be respectful with others if we are not able to do that ourselves.
Yes. Yes, that's very true and very awesome. It's great. Loria, that's a very valid point again, because, a lot of the times we speak something and we act something and we ask them to do something. So, which is not at all in correlation. And it's obvious that children learn more of seeing than, from listening. So, it's how we behave at home is how they start behaving. So, that's a very, very good point. So, in a way, this heart and mind model is applicable to everybody, irrespective of the age and also irrespective of the region or the country they are in, because it's a universal applicable model for all the teachers across the world. So it's how greatly together put it in the form of an acronym. So thank you so much, Loria. And moving on to my next question, how can teachers effectively implement SEL in their classrooms? And few points to share with them.
Yeah, so there are three main strategies to bring SEL into a classroom. The first one is to teach the skills explicitly. So the way that educators normally do this is during their teaching day, they will allocate a little bit of time in their schedule to come together with the children and teach these skills explicitly. So, for example, they might read a book that talks about emotions and then have a conversation with their children to increase their emotional literacy. So, the amount of words that children have to describe their emotions. So, that could be an example of how to teach this explicitly. In the case of self-management, I liked your responses. Maybe the teachers are teaching the children what happens in the brain when we get really upset, right? So the children understand that if we get really upset, our amygdala is sending signals, right? To say, hey, this is a threat, red flag, red flag. And then children identify when that's happening, and then they practice maybe a strategy to take 3 deep breaths when they feel that their emotions are rising up, and they notice in their body. So making that connection between that being upset and how that feels in the body. So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is looking at their teaching practices. So what we have learned about SEL, a big foundation of it, is based on the research that has been done on affective neuroscience and the teachings of how the brain learns. So when teachers implement SEL in their classrooms, they are looking at their teaching strategies and thinking about, oh, if I, for example, do lectures all day in my classroom, that's not a way to help students practice their social emotional skills. But if I have them maybe resolve a problem with a small group, or if I integrate reflection in my classroom, or I integrate emotions in my classroom, those are different ways in which they can integrate SEL in their teaching practices. So really looking at how, not so much what they teach, but how they teach. And then the third strategy is to look at the academic content and see what are the connections between the content and SEL. So in all countries, in Sri Lanka or India, all countries have standardized objectives that the schools have to accomplish, right? That students have to master. So in this third strategy, what we do is we look at those academic objectives and we see what are the opportunities to bring in these social emotional skills, these hard skills, into our instruction. So, for example, in mathematics, one of the standards here in the US where I'm based is students have to find alternative ways to solve problems. So, in thinking about how you find alternative ways to solve problems, there might be a situation where you feel stuck and you are thinking, oh, I'm not a math person, I'm not going to be able to do that. So that's an opportunity to bring SEL and to help students realize, wait a minute, if I tell myself I'm not a math person, it's going to be harder for me to solve the problem because I'm already putting myself down and I'm not seeing myself as a learner. But if I realize that that's happening and I use some positive self-talk and I tell myself, this problem is difficult, but if I put some effort, I know that I can do it. That changes how the brain approaches this problem. It really helps us to regulate our emotions, and it gives us more like a door. It opens the door for being able to solve that problem successfully. So those are like the 3 main strategies that teachers can use to bring SEL into the classroom.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lorea. I just so loved the three strategies. In fact, yeah, because even I have been listening to it, the positive reputations, or it is how like the way we teach, the brain speaks, is how the brain behaves. So I so love that point. Very well. So, ladies and gentlemen, a very important point to note. So, for children, whoever it is, it is very, very very early age, you have to think positively instead of brooding over and thinking negatively that I can't do this. We should teach them the other way around. It will take a little effort, but then you can do it. So that's when the brain starts working in a positive manner as well. So thank you so much. And yeah, okay. And yeah, moving on to my last question for today. Should adults pay attention to their own social and emotional skills? So do they really need to, and what is that need?
Thank you for asking. That's one of my favorite questions because just to tell you a little story, when I started doing this SEL work, I thought I was going to be working mostly to be able to bring these skills with children. So that was always, what was true in my heart. But as I was doing this work, what I realized is unless we taught these skills to the adults, they wouldn't be able to teach these skills effectively to children. And one of the mantras that I have is that we cannot teach what we don't practice, right? So if as adults we don't practice these skills, we cannot teach them effectively to children. So it is very important that adults model these skills for children. Our children are watching. If you have children at home or if you are an educator, they're watching us. And even when we are not trying to teach them something explicitly, they're learning from our behavior. So if for us adults, we suppress our emotions or we let ourselves react in situations and we don't take that pause in order to really think about, oh, how am I going to respond to this situation? The children are watching and then they reproduce what they see at home or what they see in the classroom. They reproduce that as adults. And what I have seen is that there's a lot of unlearning that we have to do in order to practice these skills effectively. Because many of us, we were never taught in school about SEL. And we have learned that from trial and error in our adult lives, and many times with a lot of errors. So it is important that we practice these skills and let go of some of those lessons that we learned growing up that are really not supporting us to move forward in our lives. And I see that a big part of this is being able to see our emotions as allies, as information, and not try to suppress them or ignore them, because emotions will come up and many times they show up in ways we didn't anticipate, and then that's the situation where we get into trouble, right? We react in ways that are not positive or not supportive to ourselves or others. So I believe that the work starts with the adults, and if we can do one, if you're only going to do one thing, just practice these skills for yourself, and I think that's going to make everybody around you happier and better supported.
Yes, great, awesome. So I totally agree. After asking you this question, so to my audience, ladies and gentlemen, it is important for every one of us, not just kids or not just a particular age group. These are like because whatever when it is concerned with the children, they see somebody in the home, maybe it is a parents in the home or the teachers in the classroom. So what we talk is what we should do as well. So that's when they see and learn. So that's when they also behave the same way. So in that way, every point mentioned here is equally important for elders as well. So now I totally agree with whatever you shared, Loria. Thank you so much for that. And how do we buy this book? Is this available on Amazon or Audible or any? Yeah.
Yes, so the book is currently available in all major book retailers, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's available as a paper book, ebook, and also on Audible as an audiobook. And I'm the narrator, so you'll hear my voice if you buy the audiobook. And if you go to my website at loreamartinez.com, the first chapter of the book is currently available for free You just put your email address and you'll receive a download. So for those of you who want to get a head start while you're waiting for the book to come, you can start reading the first chapter of the book.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being so generous. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it from our the author today. Such beautiful learnings, I would say. Thank you so much for that, for such valuable inputs, and for taking out your valuable time to share your experiences and knowledge with us, and with our lovely audience who are watching us live on YouTube. Thank you so much, Loria. We absolutely loved this book and for what it holds, for us in terms of the knowledge you have given it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. It's equally pleasure to us. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it from us today. So, I'm sure you all enjoy the session as much as we loved doing it. Thank you all in the room and who are watching us live. And before we close, I have a question, Lorea, from the audience. They want to know, how, can you please share how we can bring SEL to our homes?
To the homes?
Hmm.
Yeah, so many of the things that I've talked about that apply in the classroom are also true for parents to apply at home with their children. I have a 6 and a 9-year-old, and I can tell you that I have many opportunities to practice my social emotional skills, my hard skills as a mom. And I think it starts with you as an adult, observing how you react with your children. And I would say that 80% of the conflicts we have with our kids, it is due to how we react to the things that they are experiencing. And what I've observed in myself and other parents is sometimes because we want so bad to protect them, we invalidate the emotional experience that they have. So we might say, oh, don't cry, or don't be upset, or don't be sad, because we don't want them to experience those uncomfortable feelings. But that's actually invalidating their experience. So if they have an emotion that they are experiencing, just say, I notice you are feeling upset, or I'm sorry you are feeling sad, but really name that emotion for them, and validating their experience, I think, can go a long way in making sure that they learn that it's okay to have those feelings. They are part of being a human, and we shouldn't ignore them or be ashamed because we have them. They are just part of who we are. So that's something that important the parents can do at home.
Thank you, Loria. I hope that answers this question. So thank you so much, everyone. Yep, just take care and see you all next week. Thank you so much, Loria, and all the good luck.
Thank you so much.